Hello everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Nisekoi Volume Reviews. This time we will be covering chapters 135 to 152.
Alright. These were pretty good chapters, Corbin.
Were they?
Yeah, I really like these volumes.
I was going to make a smart remark, but to be honest, I honestly forgot what it was.
Alright.
I don't remember it whatsoever. Now of course, Nisekoi is written by Nanashi Komi, great author, made a beautiful series such as this. And, she goes on to cover a One Piece chapter eventually. It just, redraws an entire One Piece chapter.
That's odd, but alright.
You should read it sometime. With no context.
Yeah, they both did run in Shonen Jump, so I guess it makes sense. A lot of authors, collaborate making art for other people.
Yeah. This was, a year ago.
Alright.
This wasn't even, a long time ago. Now, last time in Nisekoi, which would have been volume 15, we had the school festival that went on, right? And the whole thing of the, what's it called, Jaden? The competition, the beauty pageant.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right? And Haru revealed she was wearing her wedding dress, and a whole bunch of that happened.
Yeah. The last volumes, as a recap, were garbage. They were not that good.
Yes.
So maybe my high rating of these comes from just the drastic change from bad to average.
Bad to average. Well, to be honest, chapter 135 sucks.
Okay.
It's about Yui singing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It starts off pretty much Yui, we learned that she does not know how to sing. She seems perfect in every other way. She can't sing. There's a joke chapter about Marika trying to teach her how to sing, and her voice gets so bad she learns how to sing.
Okay, so I want to know, do you have any idea what time this ran in Shonen Jump, these chapters here? What year, maybe?
Yes, this series, if I'm not mistaken, started in 2012 and ended... This series actually ended about, if not a month, a few weeks before Bleach ended in 2015 or 16.
Okay.
I think it was 2016.
All right.
So if I had to guess, this would have been late 2014 to early 2015, if I had to guess.
The reason I say that is because this is an exact copy of a Love is War chapter that goes the exact same, has the exact same beats and everything. I'll send it to you one day. It's remarkable how similar it is.
When was this chapter aired of Love is War?
At least 2014 and 15, because that's when the series began. And it's around chapter 40 or 50, so I bet you it's around the same time. Close to it.
Well, because Nisekoi started in 2012, I would say this chapter predated it.
Okay.
Right? I think that would just make more sense, being that we are a little over halfway through the series runtime, which would be about that 2014 mark.
All right.
So, but yeah, it's a joke chapter about Yui singing. I didn't really have a lot of fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Next is a good arc. It's the beginning of the Doppelganger arc, right? In the opening panels, we learned that a princess of a distant kingdom is coming to visit, the princess of Nanabiri,
Okay.
right? And all of a sudden we just see Chitoge and Raku just walking down the street talking about this princess who's apparently here, right? As we see somebody in some garb, running down the street, this female being chased by a bunch of guys in black suits, right? Raku and Chitoge think about it for a second, like, is that girl being chased by a bunch of gang members? Right? And they go and they kidnap this, not really kidnap, just pull him into the bushes, and Raku's like, yeah, I think I saw this person go that way, right? And they learn that this is, the princess, Mushala, right? She looks exactly like Chitoge.
The only thing different is that her eyelashes are colored white instead of black. That's the only
Exactly.
difference.
They look the exact same, right? And at this point, since she cannot speak the Japanese language, right, there's a little bit where she uses like a text-to-speech thing to communicate with him, and she's like, yeah, my family is all, my late mother always talked about Japan, and I really wanted to do stuff in Japan, right? And she pretty much just says some stuff, and Chitoge's like, I've got a plane crazy enough it could work. What if I dress up like you and you dress up like me? Raku takes you around the town, shows you everything, shows you all the sights of Japan, and I'll play princess for a day, right? That ends up happening. So Mushala and Raku end up going sightseeing, while Chitoge goes and beats a dummy princess, pretty much, right? So they go around sightseeing, going to like bunch of places just to look, and eventually like go to an amusement park, and we learned that Mushala really likes roller coasters, right? And that's really the end of 136. And 137 we get a checkup with Chitoge. We see that how she is doing damage control there, right? And she is pretty much eating all of the food into place,
Yeah.
right? Just being herself, but trying to like act refined in a way, right? Raku and Mushala just go around doing some stuff, right? They go eat some soba, and eventually Mushala asks Raku to take her to where he lives. He, of course, lives with the Shuhei-gumi, being that he is the son,
Yep.
right? And we learned that she is, like, thinks that Yakuza are really cool.
Yeah, because
Right.
Raku initially expects her to be like really scared of the Yakuza and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's a joke thing, like, one of them gives her youth belly sash, or
Yep.
it's like crap like that, right? They eventually go to a shrine, right? And pretty much Mushala says some stuff about how her family, like, that's where her parents met, and like how they met, like, in a special way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Raku's like, who knows, maybe while you're here you'll meet a special someone, right? And there's a whole thing where she's like, as they're walking away, she says in her phone, like, she's glad that she's met Raku here, right? 138, Raku takes Mushala by the sweet shop, right? And there's a whole thing with Raku and Onodera just being very cute together, like,
Yep.
they obviously like each other, but they won't say it to each other.
Because Onodera is the best girl. Let's be real.
Right, and Mushala sort of sees this sad because it's very much implied that she's sort of taken a liking to Raku during all of this.
Yeah.
Right, and she's a little sad. They go back to the hotel because the day's up and the gig's pretty much up with, right? And we see that Mushala's cell phone battery is dead, right? So she can no longer do text-to-speech. Raku's anyway, it's like, it's fine. You better probably get going, right? It was nice meeting you and all of this stuff. Right, and in the end, Mushala breaks out some Japanese and says some stuff to Raku,
Yep.
being saying she's like, I was too scared to actually say anything the entire time, right? And she's like, well, thank you for everything, and she ends up giving him a big old fat kiss on the cheek,
Yep.
right? And Raku's like, you probably shouldn't do it around Japan, but I don't know if that's a custom in your nation, and thank good here, right? And as she's walking away, she's like, there's no such custom.
Yep.
She just wanted to. Yeah. 139, Mushala meets up with Chitoge, right? They look the exact same, and they switch back into their old outfits, right, to redo stuff, right? And as they're talking, it gets brought up, like, Chitoge likes Raku, and some stuff is said, and in the end, it's like, they're both more alike than they know.
Yep.
Right? And then as Chitoge's leaving, she thinks about having a prank that she'll dress up into garb and run after to Raku, right? And Raku immediately sees her and it's like, what are you doing, Chitoge, right? And there's pretty much something where Raku's like, I've been around you enough to know who you are at this point, right? Something like that. Chitoge gets really flustered and everything, right? Cut back, the princess is giving her big speech about everything, what Japan has done with her, right? And she's pretty much going through stuff, and eventually she ends off her speech being asked, hey, what was your favorite part of Japan? She says the roller coaster ride.
Yep.
Right? And that's really the end of this. Before we talk about it, there's one more thing I want to mention. In the volume extra, right, in the chapter extra for 139, there's a little section where Muraku and Chitoge are talking about what Chitoge did being the princess, right? And it's revealed that they did the exact same stuff pretty much at the exact same time. It's almost a miracle they didn't get caught, right? So what did you think of the doppelganger arc?
Overall, it was fine. I noticed this is the first so far arc where a girl's been introduced and doesn't stick around for the rest of the series, you know?
Yeah.
She's a temporary female character, which is, unheard of in romance. But it was all right. It had good development, and I mean, if it's anime, so of course it's gonna be ridiculous and crazy. But it was nice, and I think it was well executed.
Oh yeah, I think this was very well executed. Just a whole wacky idea. They look the exact same, and Rocky's just a cool dude.
Yeah.
What can I say? Right? 140, Tsugumi finds a sleeping drug, right?
This has just become a gag at this point, you know?
This is like our fifth one, and Tsugumi even mentions whenever he finds, like, I guess it's going to turn out bad, right? Found a sleeping drug, right? She drops it on the ground, pretty much Raku picks it up, accidentally spritzes Chitoge with it. Chitoge falls asleep. It's in her field. The only way to wake somebody up with this is to give them a kiss.
Yep, like Sleeping Beauty, basically.
Yep. Pretty much after that, Chitoge gets hit with it. Onodera gets hit with it. Marika fakes to get hit with it, but she really gets hit with it, right? Eventually, Tsugumi's like, why are you just keep hitting this thing, right? She actually hits it herself and makes Raku fall asleep, so she goes to give Raku a kiss. Jitoge wakes up, since she was the first one.
Yep.
It's a whole joke thing about what Tsugumi was willing to do to get these people back.
Yeah, because it was revealed that, like, Claude said, oh yeah, it's like a tiny fraction of potency.
It's 1/16th of the true potency of it, right? It's a big joke chapter, right? 141, Ruri doesn't understand what love is, right? Friend comes to her and they want to confess to Shu, right? And there's a whole thing where Ruri's like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that, right? She ends up hearing this happen in the end, and she's like, why am I so upset that happened, right? And it's a whole joke thing, right?
Yeah. Rui's probably one of my least favorite characters, so I don't care.
Just don't care.
Nah, it's one of those chapters I can take or leave.
Do you like Rui and Shu?
No, honestly, no. I don't like either of them.
Together?
I don't like either of them separate or together. I just don't like them.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Right, 142 is probably one of my favorite chapters, right? It opens up with Marika writing her last will and testament.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I like this one.
Because she's going to go and conquer the school, what's it called? The Margarine or whatever?
The what?
What's it called in your translation?
What is it?
It's pretty much like the school jungle, right? It's all of the animals with the school.
Like, the animals? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's basically the agriculture class.
Yeah, pretty much. They take care of all the animals, and Mark is like, today I will go do this. Raku likes animals. If I like animals, Raku like me. That's her logic here, right? They do this, and eventually, after hanging out with a bunch of animals, pretty much Shitoge is also there, right? And Shitoge's always one-upping Marika, right? Yeah. And it ends with a hamster, right? Raku's like, you know what? Let's start you off a hamster. Apparently, she really hates hamsters because she had a hamster, and it ate its young.
Yep.
Right? And there's a whole joke where the hamster runs into her clothes and does some stuff, right? Next morning, Raku comes into school, hands her a stuffed hamster, and says, this is where you can start, right? If you don't like animals, start here, and maybe eventually one day you can hold a real hamster.
Yeah.
Right? I also was a good chapter.
It was a good Marika chapter. I mean, Marika's probably second best, maybe?
For you?
Yeah.
I think after my first reread, Marika really came off a lot better than she did the first time I read the series.
It's like when she's first introduced, she's annoying and nobody likes her.
But I think the development that Marika gets later is just really good, and then, I would say Marika's probably my third favorite.
And over time, I just feel bad for her.
Yeah, I would definitely say Marika's my third favorite out of all of them. Right? 143, Raku gets approached about doing a job with Onodera, right? Going off to a hot springs resort up somewhere, and the two of them will work for some pay and all of that, right? And pretty much her and Raku get up into some situations as they get up there, right? Like Raku actually falls onto her while putting up towels, and there's a bunch of just stuff like that that's the typical harem anime sort of thing, right?
I mean,
it's pretty much what's happened constantly with Haru.
It's expected at this point.
Yeah. Right, and eventually it comes out that where they are working, the place serves some food. The main cook threw out his back or whatever, right? And who else to do it than
Onodera. Come on, no, it's fine.
Kosaki and Raku to go and cook some food and pretty much make all these guests happy, right? And as they're getting ready to leave, they learn that there are no more trains for today, right? So they've got to sleep in the same room. Ooh, yeah. Look at this, right? That's where volume 16 ends. It actually ends in the middle of an arc, which is normally unseen in these situations. Yeah. Right? I found with, like, most romance series, they like to end off on an arc or begin on an arc. Like, not really split an arc like every single battle series known to man does. Right? 144, it's not Haru. Onodera or Kosaki. And okay.
This is definitely going in your thumbnail right here.
Does it have to?
Because Corbin's notes have this strange drawing of like this happy-faced, what I assume to be female on a centipede's body with 4 legs and a donut on a string.
Okay, so that's chapter 145. We'll get to that in a second.
That has got to be in the video somewhere.
I knew that you were going to point this out, and I just drew it because I felt like it. Let's finish up 144 first, right? Kosaki and Raku got to come to terms with sleeping arrangements, and will be sleeping in the same room. They put like a small partisan in between like their futons, right? They go to bathe. It's a co-ed bathing area, right? They sit on each side of a rock, and they have sort of like a little talk about how Kosaki's like, I trust you enough, right? I don't think you're gonna do any weird stuff, right? And eventually we think back to way back in the beginning of the series where Kosaki's like, yeah, I like the boy I gave, who gave me the key long ago and I made a promise with. 1 whole year later, Rocky finally realizes, wait, how's her first crush?
Yeah.
Wait, are you serious? Right? And it goes back when she was also saying, I would be glad if it was you who was the promised boy, right? And Rocky finally all thinks about this, and as he goes to ask her, she hears the question, but she faints.
Yep.
Right? And there's a whole thing just that goes on there. Right? And that's really, chapter. They get back home, and on the bus, we see and say it sleep at night. They wake up, and they're sleeping on each other's shoulders.
This is an amazing arc, and here is why. It's only Onodera, and they don't get cock-blocked the entire time. Because in every chapter, there's always some random character that comes in and interrupts it at all times. This was just those two and had good development. I feel like they need this for every character at some point.
I think Onodera has 2 more big moments like this in the series in this sort of fashion. Sort of just her and Raku doing some stuff. We'll get those eventually.
Okay.
All right, now to the infamous chapter.
See, I just remembered
145.
I just remembered what this drawing is a reference to.
You now understand it,
okay.
right? So, sports festival's going on, right? And it's a bunch of things where our different characters are on different sides of the thing, and they're doing some stuff, right? And there's a whole thing where Shu's being devious and plays the game, pretty much, right? They do a race, right? It's like Chitoge and Tsugumi who have to race each other, right? Eventually we get to the 3-legged race. What's her name? Chitoge and Raku are like got her leg tied together. Eventually they gotta pop a balloon by hugging each other, right? Okay, so the drawing on my paper. If I've not put it up already, it will be up here sooner than later, and it is pretty much. So, there's a whole thing where there's like another sort of race, right? You're pretty much hands are tied behind your back, and you have to catch a donut out of the sky or whatever, right? And that's what this picture's alluding to, right?
Yeah.
It's the whole thing where Rocky's like, oh, cool, I like that, right? Whole thing where Tsugumi is dressed up and stuff happens, right?
But why is she shaped like a caterpillar?
Long story. I tried to draw it as best as I could,
Okay.
right? Then they've got a scavenger hunt where all the girls have to find who has the they gotta find a scavenger hunt, and all of the cards for each of our 4 main girls say that special someone, right? The whole joke thing there, right? 146, Yui. I'm gonna pretty much condense these chapters because I don't care about them enough, right? Yui does everything, right? She ends up passing out, right? And like she's literally does everything. We didn't learn that she's really overworked, right? Night comes and talks to Raku. We learn about how her family does stuff, and like we pretty much just learned a bunch of Yui stuff, right? And it's pretty much all about how Yui overworks herself because she doesn't want to be alone again, right? And that's really it. Right? I don't really care about this.
No offense, but we gotta glaze over these chapters because Yui sucks.
But I would need to say something here about this. I think if this was like any other girl, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But with Yui, it's just not good to read.
Yeah.
And also, it's like, you've got this teacher-looking character. It looks like they're in their mid-20s, right?
Yep.
You go home and look like they're 14 years old.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't stand this. It's like, I just don't like it. It's not good.
Alright.
Right? 149, Chitoge wants some Oyakudan. Oyakudan. Yep.
Which is chicken and egg. Very funny.
Right?
Very funny thing if you know Japanese, because it means parent and child bowl. As in the egg and the
Really?
chicken. That's what it means, yes.
She tells us to Tsugumi, and the only one that Tsugumi knows how to cook this is Raku.
Yep.
Tsugumi invites Raku over to her place. They have some stuff that goes on. They talk about life and everything, right? And we learn like where Tsugumi's name come from and how much Chitoge means to Tsugumi, It's a really good
Again,
chapter.
a good chapter where there's no interruption. It's just one-on-one.
Yeah, and like there's the whole thing where like Sugumi's got everything planned out, like her old kitchen's perfect. And Raku's like, wow, she'd be a good homemaker someday, right? Big joke there. I really like this chapter. I think it's really good.
All right.
Right. After this, we get 150. There's the Kyoto class trip, right? And apparently there's a big love triangle, so all of the girls want to talk with Raku to get here, right? Pretty much all of our main cast is on Group A except for Raku, and he's on like Group E or whatever.
And all of the guys in his group give him absolute shit for it.
Exactly.
He's finally having some bad luck.
Yep, and the morning of, Raku wakes up late, and he has to help out an old woman get across the road because he feels bad, right? So he ends up calling up Yui, and he's like, hey, I can't make it to the bus on time, right? And Yui's like, all right, that's fine. I'll get a taxi there to get you guys here. Another student's late. You'll just catch it with her.
All right.
Right? Who would it be but Onodera? Yep. Right? So Onodera and Raku talk some stuff. Apparently, she had pretty much the same thing happened to her, except she had to help an old guy. Right? It's my headcanon that these two people are married, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right? They helped them get together in a way, right? They get on the train, some stuff happens to where the train, there's a big windstorm coming, so they can't really do much.
Yep.
Right? So the train gets stopped. They decide to get on a regular train. Apparently a bear's on the tracks, so they got to get off that because they want to get there to hang out with their friends.
Yes.
Right? To get on a bus, and a taxi for someone there. And eventually, like, the taxi crashes and they're stranded on the side of the road. And a damn truck comes to pick them up.
To hitchhike.
We cut over, and there's this truck who's just carrying these two cross country to Kyoto, right? Like a truck. Yeah. Why would you willingly pick up teenagers to let them sit in the back of your truck? They don't even have seatbelts on. It's not safe.
Hey, man.
I care about these kids.
We live in the South, and in the 80s and 90s, and even now, right in the back of the truck is how you do it, man.
Sure. And then, so they finally get there after a whole entire day of it, right?
Yep.
And we learn that the group that Raku's in, their room is flooded, right? And there's like 6 members in the group, but only 5 can stay in another room, right? So one of them has to sleep outside in a special room, right? Rock, paper, scissors. Guess who gets to go out and sleep outside?
Yep, main character syndrome.
It's Raku, right? And that's the end of 151. 152, we pretty much cut to Raku in this room as some tapping happens on his window, and who would it be but Chitoge?
Yep.
Right, so him and Chitoge talking, Raku's like, I'm actually sort of glad to have her here to talk to, right? And Chitoge's like, I just wanted to see him, that's the only reason I came here, right? And they do a bed check, right? Well, Chitoge's in Raku's room, so they gotta hide under his covers, right? Yep. And Chitoge's all close to Raku. Ooh, look at that. And then as it starts to thunderstorm, as Chitoge's getting ready to go back, she's like, I don't want to go, right? And she ends up falling asleep in the room with Raku,
yep.
Right, where she's not supposed to whatsoever. And as that happens, Raku's like, how could you fall asleep like this, right? So pretty much he ended up staying all the way over on the side and just sleeping like that. Cut to the next day as we're going through Kyoto, and there's a swordplay demo going on, and Raku sees Sugumi's playing some stuff.
Yep.
Another volume that ends off mid-arc.
Okay.
So Jaden, take your time. What do you like about this volume?
I think that both of these volumes did a good job of giving development to each character, and each character got alone time, which is something that we haven't seen much in the series.
Not really Marika.
Yeah, I was about to say, Marika didn't really, she had the animal chapter, but besides her, the non-annoying characters.
There's a chapter in here, I forget which one it is, where Mark is on the cover page, right? She doesn't appear at all through it, and like the volume extras are like, damn, I didn't appear at all.
Wow.
Right? I think it was like a Yui chapter or something.
The Yui chapters bring it down for me.
Yeah, it's just like, why? Well,
yes.
At this point, I just don't care about Yui enough to care.
But overall, I'd give these volumes a solid, probably 9 or 8.5.
9 or 8.5?
Probably a 9, because these are high points in the series for me.
And also, another thing I didn't mention, I really think this chapter with, after this arc is finished, like this whole Kyoto trip arc, I really think at this point is where the series, deviates, and becomes, the end of the series talk.
Okay.
There, right?
So it enters, the final arc?
It enters the final arc for me, at least. Whenever I think about it, this is the beginning of the final arc of how I think about it.
All right, well, that's about all I have for now. I used to have notes, but I've been dispersing my thoughts between these chapters.
Yeah.
Overall, they were very good.
I think they were very good, too. And, we will be back next time with Nisekoi Volumes 18 and 19.
All right, see you, everybody.
Yep, see ya.